All right, well, good morning, everyone. So my name is Zach. If you don't know me, I'm the Vice President of the West Michigan chapter. So today we're learning about real-world implementation of failure mode and effect analysis. So today our two presenters are Steve and Tim. They both work for Fasco Industries in Walker. So Fasco provides high-quality cold heated bolts with just-in-time delivery to facilities around the world. Steve is their facilities manager, and Tim White's daily focus is on quality assurance as their PPAP, or production part approval process coordinator. That's a mouthful. These two highly unlikely safety people took the initiative. Backed by the company president, the duo explored how FEMA could support their safety initiatives to reduce risk exposures to their coworkers. After the exploration phase, it was evident that they needed to undergo a beta study. So they implemented in January of last year, and the results have been positive. The decisions toward corrective actions were based on factual data, and the results led to a reduction in workers' compensation claims and a reduction of severity measures, only reinforced having FEMA as a significant part of their safety culture with the aim towards continuous improvement. So many of us safety professionals might know about the concepts in FEMA in textbooks, but have never witnessed it in action. This is your chance to see how the system works, which can be applied to many industries. So without further ado, Tim and Steve, take it away.
All right, welcome. Bear with me. I've never spoken in front of a crowd before, online or anything. So again, we're from Fasco Industries. My name's Tim White. I am the PPAP coordinator / now change coordinator / environmental coordinator. So I actually have a few different hats. So we're going to talk about creating a FEMA or failure mode effect analysis. I'll just refer to it as FEMA because that's how it was already showed. And using it for safety. Yep. So goals to demonstrate how using a failure mode effect analysis for safety can benefit an organization and lower your risk. We're going to talk about how safety teams came about at Fasco, give you what I required actually for this, and some of the obstacles we had to overcome. Then we'll just go over the FEMA itself, how we transferred it over from a AIAG FEMA to a safety FEMA. And then we'll just talk about kind of rolled the benefits in real life. Steve will talk about the real life implications and benefits at the end. All right. So what is a FEMA? You know, some of you might know it, some of you may not. Depends on if you're in automotive or not. So you review components, assemblies, and subsystems to identify potential failure modes in a system and their causes and effects. Safety FEMA is a living risk analysis document. That is key, living. It's not just, okay, we have our risk thing, now let's just review it when we want to. It's also based off of the AIG FEMA 4th edition. They do have a new edition now, but we went to stay with the 4th because it's what I know the most. Now, how did we get here? Ultimately, it was because I opened my big mouth. So it started out is I worked in different industries all of my life. I've done cooking, baking, factory, customer service. And so I've actually been driving high-lows since 2004. Well, I kind of was questioning how some of our strength of our high-low training. So like, well, do you think you can help us make it better? And I said, sure, we'll join our safety team. I'm like, okay. And then during that process of doing that and bulking that up, we were talking in our safety team about risk analysis. I turned to the president, Bruce Tapp, and said, why don't we just use FEMAs? He's like, we can do that. I'm like, should be able to. And that's where we are now with his backing and help of Steve. And he started doing it. We just did it. So that's how we got here. So the 3 requirements I told him we needed to have was time. This is going to take time at start for sure. You got to create your base. You need a good attitude. You need to have a positive attitude, and you have to make this one work. If you want this to work, it will. If you don't, it's not going to do anything for you. Just with FEMAs in general. The last thing is personnel. we have a core team, me, Steve, and Bruce. And then, but we also include in every department FEMA we're working on, not only the supervisor, but you have to have your people on the floor. Your production, your low and your bottom guys, they know the real hazards. They know what is actually happening on that floor. As a supervisor, even though you got 10 years ago, oh, I used to be on the floor, you don't know what happened since then. New machines could have came in. New processes could have been put in place. Things will break down that they see every day. So it needs to include, but not limited to managers, supervisors, and your workers. Use your resources that you have on the floor, out on your feet, or wherever, those that do the day-to-day work. Right. Now, here are the obstacles. First, again, personnel. Getting your employees to be on board with it. Not only it starts from the management down. With us, we're good. What's really helping with us is that Bruce Tapp, we were a small company. Bruce Tapp, who's the president, is really good for this. He is heading this, helping us with this, and making sure we get this done. Time, having the willingness to put in the time. It's not going to be okay. I can do this FEMA in 1 month and be done. We're only done. We're on a third department, and we've been at this for a year. Now we don't meet every week. We meet every other week. But during that time we don't meet, the supervisors are actually creating this FEMA. They're talking to their people. They're getting the data they need. A realistic type of attitude. The reason I say that is with a FEMA, you must assume that all current processes and procedures are followed. You can't be like doom and gloom. You can't be, oh, there's no way that's going to happen. Because then you're not going to get realistic data. Then the biggest obstacle I had was determining the severity, the occurrence, and the prevention standards. If anyone's familiar with AIEG, these are the tables that run your FEMA. Now there's excuses. I've heard Rich was giving me some of these excuses he's heard. We are too small. Vasco's only 100 people. We're a small company. We don't have the money. Well, overall, it's cheaper to prevent the injuries than to deal with them over your long term. Also, with it comes the money is your ideas don't cost money. Yeah, time is money, but it's not like you're there already working. So, right. So the basics, again, based on AIUG's FEMA 4th edition template. A safety FEMA is a living document, and it contains what I call 10 core sections and 4 action sections. Anyone familiar with FEMA's? We'll get to that in a few minutes. And it is a living document that will be updated minimum yearly. Also, anytime there's an accident report, you update it. Anytime there is any concerns with it, you update it. That's the living part. It's constantly changing. It uses a risk priority number, or we're going to refer to it as RPN, to help determine the risk areas and what and where to focus next. The RPN is a combination of severity times occurrence times prevention, and it gives you a solid number from 0 to 1,000. So this is, can you guys see that chart? Well, I have it, otherwise I have another thing if you guys can't. So for severity ranking, you take the number for severity from the highest ranking of the effects column. We'll get there also shortly. And this will never change. You should never change your severity. These are all the possible outcomes. We have 2 sides. Again, I based this off of the AIEG's 4th edition table. You have criteria, severity of effects on the employee, and the severity of effects on the employment. Unfortunately, this is where you do have to get some reality. You start from the bottom, which is there's no discernible effect, like nothing happened. That's like I banged my arm on a door, nothing, no big deal. All the way, unfortunately, to death. That's a unfortunate thing. Something happens in industry. So this, I came up with a baseline, and with me and Bruce and Steve together, we got what we agreed on. Now, some people are like, why do you have 2 sides? Well, because you might have a 5 as one of the things that results in because it's urgent care and can't work, but then in reality, you can end up being on short-term disability 1 through 12, 1 to 12 weeks. So that can raise it for your employment, but as an employee, you're just went to urgent care, no big deal. And due to our history, this can change based on each company. Due to some of our known over time history of injuries, we also added in, you look, future illness of injury resulting in death. I mean, I don't think we've had any of those, but that would be like someone that might have got in a bad environment where they're breathing in toxic fumes their whole life, not realized it, and then after they retire, they're like, well, now I have COPD. That actually got from my grandfather. He worked for GM, and his office was right under the old days when they could smoke right in their break room. He developed COPD even though he was never a smoker. And it was one of the things that got him in life. So I'll just go down from the top. Immediate hospitalization or long-term for effect on employee. We put that out there because that'd be like, you're gonna be in the hospital for a while. That's a pretty big risk. Future long-term illness or injury. So this would be something that doesn't really kill you. This is where our history from FASCO. We've had guys with shoulder injuries from lifting too much heavy stuff, repetitive motions. So that would be, that's what I put up higher because again, down the road, they're gonna have problems. And that could cost you some money if it was determined from work. And we just go down to your basics, injury resulting in response to a visit to the ER without stay. So this would be something severe enough to go to ER, but they'll let you go at the end of the day. And then we have injury resulting in visit to urgent care, again, cannot work. So you're not necessarily going to a hospital, but you still have to, like, maybe sprain your ankle, broke your ankle. If you read all the way down to go to urgent care and go back to work, I got stitches. Okay, I'm back at work. All the way down to minor injury resulting in first aid. So this would be stuff you can do on site. Okay, we have to call the first responder. Okay, bandage you up. You're good to go. Now, and then we have the lowest, second lowest would be minor injury resulting in minor first aids. Like I got a paper cut, give me a Band-Aid. So then you switch over to the employment. Again, worst thing that can happen is unfortunately death. Injury resulting in never returning to work. Just like, well, I lopped my hand off. Now I can't do my job. I'm not going back. Then we kind of switched this up to where you have some, like, again, long-term disability. We went to short-term disability. We got those numbers based off, obviously, off of the insurance type of things. Lost time 1 to 8 days. And injury resulting in, then again, down to finally injury with urgent care can return to work with restrictions though. And so on, down to again, no discernible effects. So I came up with these just from general knowledge of being in different industries and different injuries and different history. All right. Now occurrence. This can be adjusted based on your employees. We base this off of 100 employees. You must be realistic. So you can, you're not going to be all, well, I think we should put this one as 10,000. Was that really realistic for your company? You must always round up. So let's say you have an industry 1 per year, usually, and also you have another one. Now it's 2 per year. You have to go up to the 5 per year. Your occurrence has to go to 1 3. So you can never, oh, it's still only 2, so we can still stay down at 1 or up 2. So we also have determined that every 5 years for our company, we're going to revisit these and readjust our occurrences officially. So it'll be like 5 years from now, okay, well, now we don't have any more injuries. We can bring it down to a 2. Very rarely will you ever bring it down to a 1, but you still have it there. Okay. Then prevention, this is all based off of the detection. That's why you'll see opportunity for detection up there. This can change. This is the one that changes constantly. This is the one that can change based on what you put into place. Sometimes it doesn't change when you add stuff, but sometimes, most of the time it does. And we went with, for this one, the way I started this up is I went from the basic injury eliminated through preventive controls. So this would be like, if you can't get electrocuted by a properly used working insulated plug you plug into the wall. Like, there should be no way I can touch this and get electrocuted. There's no way. Then we went to the next step up was this should be prevented through lock guards. So there's no way unless they unlock it that they can get into that area of the machine. The next one we went up for a 3 was we decided prevented through guards. These would be your removable guards that you will be like for us, we use guards when they're running, but when they're setting up, they have to have it open. So then sorry, forgot this prevention, not but so these are just kind of rewording of the AIAG things for more for injuries. So then we go to problems prevented pre-injury. So this would be stuff we decided prevented through process and procedures like lockout, tagout, automatic, and mechanical measures. So these would be things like a light curtain, where it's not a guard, but if you go through it, it's going to be automatically shut things down. Lockout, tagout, when you guys set up, ideally, you lock out you get rid of all the energy. There's no way that should happen, that unless someone, tampers with it. If we have problems prevented at time of injury, this would be things like your PPE prevented through process procedures, PPE manual items such as like ergonomical supports, things that you use to help lower your risk. Then we go up to a 6 would be a problem preventing pre-injury again, but this time it's just through training classes, like your training, your procedures. We do monthly safety training every month. Then again, problem prevented at time of injury, prevented through visual or audible means. That would be like a, hey, watch out for that box. Or, oh, I see this trips hazard here. You only can just prevent it because you see it. Problem prevented post-injury. So this would be anything that comes up after an injury happens. Oh, we never knew that was an injury until someone actually did it. Then before we get into the 9, where it's not easily preventable, possibly you might be prevented, we discover it in maybe a random audit. Oh, we never thought of that. All the way up to there's no way to prevent it. It's going to happen. So these are the things that we're kind of had to switch from automotive to manufacturing to the safety area. Right. Again, these are the 10 columns. You got your operations. This is the where and what. So this for us, it's like our cold heading department, material handler, material handling, setup, the process of what you're doing, your auditing. Potential injury, this is your injury type. It needs to be basic and simple, not too wordy. You're not explaining it, you're just saying, this is what it is. This is, then you have your effects. These are based off the severity ranking table. And you have to include all the possible effects from the top to the bottom. This is where the realistics have to be in. Because like you can easily say, well, if I get a paper cut and then it gets infected and I get in the hospital, I could die. You can't do that. You got to be realistic. Then your severity number comes from your highest effect. We typically I used to put the number in their effects so you know what you're looking at. Then you get your cause. We're going to have multiple causes. We'll show you that. All possible causes of that injury type. So we'll get again into that in a few minutes. Then we get into current safety controls, injury prevention. This is the what. What do you currently have in place? So this would be like for us, a lot of it's our job instructions, our safety manual information. This would be a lock guard, like what we have in place. Then you have your occurrences. And then you have your current safety controls, the current processes, the how. So this would be like, yeah, it's in job instruction, but then you explain the basics of how you're doing that with that. Like through training, through classes, through your programs. Then we get down to the prevention. And you use, sometimes you can have multiple preventions in one section. Like you might have a guard and a light curtain. Well, you better use whichever one is your lowest for that one. And then this is where you put your RPM where you multiply your severity, your occurrence, and your prevention. Then I got what I call the 4 action columns. This is where the recommended actions, where the safety committees put in there what they recommend we do. And your ideas, this is where your ideas go. Then you have a place for the responsible person and target date, which you tell, okay, so I'll say, like, Steve, your job is to look into this. I want it done by this date. Now that can obviously change your time. Then you have your action taken. This is what that person actually puts in what they did. And then you recalculate your RPM. Can you bring up the FEMA? Yeah, I'll use that. So we actually brought one of our safety.
You gotta get out of this one.
Yeah, get out of that person.
See this? Yeah.
Are you Tim?
Huh?
Is that you?
No. No, he made sure that my stuff didn't show up here because I have pictures. My background has pictures of my kids and stuff. All right, let me use the. So this is what we have. We started our safety room. We have a Plex system which has a built-in fields, so it made it a lot easier. I've seen we've had some that were Excel files. You can whichever. If you already have the FEMA format available, you can just adjust things. So here you'll see the operations. For this one, this is our sort department FEMA. So we start out with material handling. So one thing with our, we were kind of hoping our manager, the sort department leader, could be here just to explain how she did some of the stuff. So what she did, instead of just having one person in our meetings helping determine stuff, she actually sent out a questionnaire to all her employees. And said, what in your area specifically do you have hazards you see every day? So under material handler, we have, this is the operation of the sort department. Muscle strains due to raking operations. So this straight up, we get strains from doing this. So then she added all of the worst thing from you can go however you want to organize it. She went from the worst to the lowest. So she ranked it a 7 for severity. Do I have the other stuff too? Folders on here still?
Sure.
Where'd that go? They brought those out for me. It might not be open, I just need my folder.
Oh, you need your folder?
Yeah.
Here, if you let me control, I'll bring it over to there.
There we go. There you go. There you are. There we go. So this is a nice little Excel file I created for this. So. Yeah. All right, so. So she put a 7 as the highest severity. So that's the highest number she put in her list of effects. Then we ignore that CLS. That's for AIAG. That's for like your special characteristics. You know what those are, like your critical stuff. Then you go to cause. So she said the muscle strain is due to pulling heavy parts from a hopper to a tub. So we have these giant bins, tubs that they have to pull into a hopper that's a feeder to sort the parts. So you have these big metal rakes that you're sitting there. Some of our parts can be 45 parts equals like 60 pounds. So at that point in time, when we first did this, there was no there's no preventive control that we had in place for this specific. This is one of the things where, well, we never sort of thought of this. It was one of the things that it was known on the floor. They knew what was happening. This was happening, but no one really would report it. So then at this point in time, we did an occurrence of 3. And that was based on, I think that's a 5 per year, because we on average have had reports. She took the occurrences for these were actually from our past 5 years,
5 years.
5 years of accident reports. So she used the real-time data that we had on file to get these occurrences. So these are actually up to what we actually are currently sitting at. Then we have one of the things that we did actually put of what we're doing is we actually have tub stands at some of our machines as well as ladders to help them get a better angle and helps open the doors. So there's less strain of them trying to sit there opening the door and raking, which can be painful. So then we go to, once we get our detection, this RPN is 147. So then we recommended the document in a job instruction how to do this safely. So you see the people at meeting, what they were going to do. Julie, who was our supervisor over there, she had to do that by 10/31. And then she told you what we actually did. We updated appropriate job and training instructions for the inspection department. So then they recalculated. Well, this one, because of us changing that, went from a 7 down to a 6, and now we've lowered it to 126. Now you can have multiple, you can add as many recommendations under the one you want. Just like you can have multiple causes. So you see here, pedestrian being hit by high-low. We have high-low speed and lack of awareness, so you can have that can be multi-tiered. The only section that is not multi-tiered is anything before severity or before. That will always be the same. You see here under current safety controls, injury prevention, we currently have a FAFSA safety manual, tells you the number, where to find it, transportation training, high-low training. And then we also, within, I don't know how many years ago, we put governors on all our forklifts to prevent speeding too fast.
Still back in 18.
Yep. So that was not too far away. Yes, it was. So the original RPN, we came out with 100. Then we made sure the speed governors were installed. Were these not actually installed over there, or that's what we
There's some.
investigated?
Yeah. No, there's some.
Oh, I see. In 2019. So once we put that in there, we brought it down to an 80. Now, the biggest thing with the RPN is you do not want to force an RPN. If you have an RPN that is 900, let it be 900 and figure out how to lower that. Don't force it to be a lower number. If you notice severity of this, the 10, it will always be a 10. That will never go below a 10. Because as you know, forklifts can kill and have. So overall, so then we switch.
How did you identify, or specifically to material things like that? You did some race specifically at your plants, or?
Yeah, this is all data from all these injuries were from our 5 years history, plus those on the floor. Because there's some things that your employees don't report. For instance, we have a thread roll operation at our place. And that occurrence, how you saw go up 1,000 or more per year. I started in the thread roll at this company. I was probably picking out metal shards out of my hand of slivers daily. Because when you roll threads, some metal can shave off. And then you're sitting there cleaning out your machine, do the purge. You gotta put your hand in somewhere. Of course, that we're currently in the thread roll. That's why I can't bring that up, because we're currently in the works on that one. That's a new department we're working on. But think about that. I'm one person in thread roll. There's maybe 10 or more people in that department. Imagine each one of them every day having slivers. That's going to be a huge occurrence. That's going to be a 10. But they don't report it because typically we get our little calipers and pick them out. with a macroscope. But, so all our potential injuries at this point in time are based off of our past history and the data from the people on the floor that see the day-to-day stuff, their injuries. This can change too.
You said, say, we're a new trend of injuries, sterile handling. How does the revision process go for adding that into this? Just becomes a new item on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like, let's say you decide, oh, we also suddenly have a new injury, you can just add it onto it. Under material. That's where the living part comes
Yeah,
in.
it's the living
You are
document.
constantly updating. So if you have an injury and you, so let's say Julie finds some other weird mechanical injury from based on material handling. She goes, we never had this before, but suddenly it's here. She will go in here and add it in. And then we will add, that's where the living part comes in. It will constantly change. You'll add more. You will never take anything out. You'll always add in. So, because there's sometimes there were some things that we discovered in our cold handling department where the manager was like, the guy was like, well, what about this, this, and this? He goes, I never heard of that. Well, yeah, it's always been passed on word of mouth. From guy, watch out for that.
I mean, is everybody familiar with like a job risk assessment? We're just taking this one step further.
Yeah, that's pretty much what this is. And actually making it constantly.
Yep.
Updating it to get your actual numbers. So one thing that we've already started doing is specifically Julie. We're done with this part, right?
Yeah.
Is she's actually been using this in with her side by side with her accident reports and finding out, okay, so even though this is a muscle strain, where does this actually lie in our RPMs for this actual injury and where can we make it better?
I'll be back up.
Right here?
Yes, please.
And then you're gonna speak it from here. Here, let me control this.
And this is the reason we're doing this. So. All right. So the next slide, I think is.
Is it me?
Yep, and then we're going
All
on.
right.
Any questions on the FEMA section?
What numerical value is significant? So like, in the past, when I've done PFEMAs and FEMAs, we said anything over 100 is significant, right?
Do not do that.
So, okay, so those were like our target list, right?
Yes.
So we wanted to put an engineering control in for everything over 100, for example.
I mean, you can really, if you want to set that, you can, but really what this RPN is helping with us do is it prioritizes, okay, well, this one's a really high RPN. Maybe we should focus on that before it gets out of control. I remember my AIAG class, they say don't really put a requirement for RPMs. Because then you're just gonna, some people will tend to start pencil punching it to get lower. So use those numbers to help point out your problem areas. Use them like they're supposed to be used for, not to try and get them lower, but to find out, oh, maybe we should look into this area now instead of this area, because we seem to get this under control, but this one's kind of going out of control. There's some that we put in there that the RPN after we did stuff, it didn't change, but it still made it better. We still did stuff to make it better, just it's still in the same RPN area. So I know as in the field, well, can you get your RPN lower? I'm like, really, we can't, because what we're doing is what we're doing. Because in our field, for the severity, you're gonna have scrap. You can't rework fasteners very often. So really, I mean, you as a company want to set, okay, anything over this, let's really focus on, but really is, the issue is you need to use those numbers to your advantage, not just try and pencil push them down. Look, use those numbers. Okay, if you have one that's 500 and one that's 400, okay, let's look at the 500. What can we do now? If you've done everything you can at that time, then just move on to the next one. Don't say, okay, we have to get this down. Well, you have to right now, or just make sure you are focusing on that. Any other questions? All right, Steve's gonna talk about what we've done due to this FEMA?
I'm Steve. I'm the facility manager at Fasco. Been there 25 years. I've been doing this for 24 years. In charge of maintenance, facility maintenance, machine maintenance. Been doing safety for 24 years. I've been on a safety team, so yeah, been there a long time. So now we're gonna talk about real life implementation. Shows gaps in our job instructions and safety manual, which in turn helps strengthen those documents. We started out doing this with cold heading, team leader and cold heading department. And we found that some of the job instructions were updated. For instance, PPE, grinding on the wire, getting the wall off the wire. We found it said the job instructions use goggles. Well, we had changed that to face shields because obviously goggles weren't covering your whole face up. But the job instruction wasn't updated, so we find that the updated, they need updated, so. Helps guide our safety focus with injury specific prevention. It drives us to be more proactive versus reactive. It helps in completing accident reports. What we're gonna hope what we do is when a team leader has to fill an accident report out for their department, they'll be able to go to these documents and the FEMAs to look at it, so. All right, here's some notable FEMA improvements. In our clothing department, we got these, our federal department has them as well.
I'm gonna get out of that truck folder.
Right now.
Yeah, so just hit the escape button. Ready? Yep.
Ready to go to the videos?
Yep.
All right, we got a couple of videos to show you. What we did, we got these dump pans. And we're gonna show you the old school way of dumping, using your wrist and the weight. And we're gonna show you some improvements that we made with new dump pans.
Is that the right one? Right here. Screen. It's not showing up on here. Yeah, it will. You just have to pause it at the bottom and drag it at the top. Or drag it. Oh, I see. We have two screens technically. Yeah. Okay.
All right, this is gonna be the old school way of how we're doing it right now currently. You can see that they fill up the pans. They fill up the pan and she's gonna use her wrists and her back. And see how she had to use her weight to dump that. Now we're gonna show you a new design. As you can see, we got pillow block bearings, we got a wheel to turn it, and they're half shaped rounds, so when you go to flip it, the whole point is gravity takes over. So that's gonna be the new ergonomic way of doing it, that we're gonna put throughout the shop. What it was, we talked about it in our safety team, and I had an idea, went back to my maintenance team. And a gentleman on my third shift maintenance team came up with the idea of the new pan. I just told him what I was looking for, he designed it. So
What's the purpose of that?
the purpose of it,
Like, why does it just run into the?
because you gotta check so many parts. It's a containment pan. You check so many parts with calipers, mics, and then once it's good, you dump it. If it's bad, then you gotta dump them into a scrap hopper.
We have some tubs that are 100,000.
And as you can see,
Anything in the tub.
this right here is gonna be the bad parts. It's made out of aluminum, so it's real lightweight, the paint is right for scrap. So if they do find bad parts in that containment pan, they'll dump them in there and then dump them in the scrap hopper. So, but as you can tell, like I said, it's got a wheel on it, it's got pillow block bearings on both sides, plus it's half round, so the whole point is when you go to do it, gravity kind of helps take over, plus you got the bearings to help assist, so much easier.
So Steve, was that as a result of somebody complaining or somebody coming down with a ergonomic injury or illness?
This is just like, you might have someone who's been doing this job for 15, 20 years, that their shoulders are shot, their wrists, their elbows are shot, their back is shot.
Yeah, this is one of the ideas based on the FEMA of realizing that people's shoulders, and we have had a history of people later in life being there for 20 years, having bad shoulders, bad backs. And we're like, how can we make that they told us, well, those pan dumps are hard. You get some of these parts that are huge and heavy, you're having to put a lot of force into dumping those. So this was part of the idea section of what can we do? The FEMA was like, okay, well, let's get that one lower because that is an issue. That is a higher RPN issue because it has stuff, future impact stuff.
So prior to FEMA, it was one of those things, the mindset was, hey, this is part of the job, this is how you gotta
Yeah.
do it.
I mean, especially when you have those injuries that are long-term, that you're not gonna find out for like 10, 15 years.
Mhm.
You don't think about it because, okay, maybe one or two every couple of years happen. You complain about it. Other than that, you get the people that just finally retire and just like, they're just living with this pain.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that FEMA showed us, that it's showing us some of the areas where, oh, this is stuff that's actually problems after they leave this place. That's caused by this place. Let's try and limit that too. And so that was one of their ideas that the FEMA brought about. Oh, we do need to visit this.
And then, in our sort department, we have some skid stands, just skid stands are probably about that low. That they put their boxes on there, to take them out the box conveyor. What we decided to do was go with a air bag one, to where it'll be at a certain height, and as you put the boxes on and skid, it'll lower down. And also, not only that, it also spins, so that way they're not reaching around. So when the box gets full and skid, they have to go on to the next level, they can just spin that, so they're not reaching over it with the box.
Again, this was a result in one of the biggest complaints in sort was back pain. Having to reach and put these 30-pound boxes on, 27 per skid is where we put them on. So this was a result of what can we do? We visited other things, some very expensive things that like the vacuum systems. But realistically, with our setup, they were gonna be.
What we found too with the vacuum system
Yep.
thing is not only, yeah, you're picking it up and you're putting it on the skid, but now you're also taking and you're reaching over with that vacuum. So now you're using your back. So you're fixing one solution, but creating another issue when you do that. So we found that just by having a turntable, a spinning turntable on an airbag system.
So the turntable isn't powered at all, right?
No.
On ball bearings.
It's, yep, cause you just think that you got a skid on top of that. And so if you fill up your skid and you not gotta go to the next layer, you can just basically just rotate the skid by hand. Yep.
Right.
And
And all these ideas came from,
you have a foot control on that skid to just drop it up or raise it down?
no, it's all done by weight, balance.
It's an airbag.
As it.
Yep.
Got
Build
it.
the
What's
airbag.
nice about this one is that it's like a tire, you just fill it up one time
Mhm.
and it keeps the air in it. So unless there's an air leak, you don't have to go back and refill it. You don't have to keep an air hose hooked to it. So you don't have to worry about trip hazard of an air
Yeah.
hose.
We
Hang in
we
there.
have them in our skid building area, and they're
Yeah.
money.
And this is something that came up with the people that work in the sort department. They came up with the idea too of what they wanted. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with Great Game of Business. But Fast goes into Great Game of Business. And it's basically you want all your employees to want to treat them, make them act like owners, take initiative. You know, like for instance, my third shift maintenance guy, Brandon, I told him what I wanted for that dump pan. He created it, made it, and now it's his own. So he's proud of that and working on making them throughout the shop and stuff. And he's taking ownership in that. And yeah, so that's a big part of Fasco is a Great Game of Business. Yeah. All right. In conclusion here, our goal today was to demonstrate how using failure mode affects analysis for safety can benefit organization and lower risks. Our benefits today were proactive approach, specific injury prevention, and real-time data. All right.
Any questions?
Validated with reduced injury rates, something like that, from that specific task. I think if 1 year you had 5 muscle strains from material handling. People putting things in place in your RPM lowers, do you have something that validates to saying, well, I've got 3 or 4 injuries or none now because of that action?
Well, that's where your recalculation comes in. You put recalculate, and then every 5 years when we reevaluate, we will take those numbers to make them into the official core. And it will replace those.
What have you ever looked to see if it actually results in less injuries?
Mhm.
Have you compared that to, more injuries, less injuries, actual data?
I mean, if you're actually,
Stuff like that.
our choice was 5 years. If you can choose whatever, if you're seeing like, okay, we've had, no, on average, we were getting 4 of these injuries a month, and now we're down to 1. And it's been 4 or 5 months, you can then revisit that if you think it's sooner.
Are you visiting every 5 years, or is there a closer timeline to be evaluating your injuries that you were producing, I guess?
I mean, again, that's what we chose to do at this point in time, because a lot of our injuries are over time.
Yep.
So again, based on your company, you have different risks, different, at this point in time, we're still in, again, this is still in development phase. We've chosen 5 years, that can change. So a lot of the stuff, that's what the point, why it's called living documents,
Yeah.
can change.
You're collecting data, but obviously it's gonna take time to
Absolutely.
use it.
But if it's like something
You
that,
guys are looking at, justifying your RPM, right?
yeah,
Lowered it, you put procedures in place, and just make sure checks and balances that your procedures actually do.
Yep, that's why you-
Ready to get there and revise everything. I'm curious where you were.
yeah, that's why we have that part where you recalculate the RPM, that state what the calculation is, and then you visit it and then adjust your main one later on. That once you have validated it, then you do the official changes. Again, severity will never change. Your occurrence and prevention will change. Hopefully occurrence can go down, fortunately, a lot of times they can go up. Unless you have stuff in place.
How did the implementation of the system go? Were supervisors who are adding information to this pretty willing to kind of take on this new task or?
So far,
Yeah,
some of that has to do with the fact that the president and CEO is on board.
okay, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the shout
that was
out
the
to the
key.
owner, shout out to the owner, Bruce Tapp, he's big into safety.
He wants to make our
takes-
place as safe as possible. Because hopefully I like to think they think of us as more of a family. And so he cares about a lot of the people that work there.
And and so the supervisors have a pretty good understanding of kind of what the document is doing and how it works.
Yeah.
And then they also have backup with me. I'm helping them kind of,
Yeah,
because of I've only been doing things for like 5 years, but I take on things and I keep a lot of that stuff. So I'm helping guide them in the right direction, but eventually they will be the ones taking over the whole document.
and that's also too why you wanna get people on the floor to voice this too, because, you just wanna give the supervisor the voice and they're not out the floor doing the work.
I mean, some of them are, but yeah, so.
I could tell you like the dump pan project, I have a young lady in one of our bays, she's been there over 30. I can't remember.
I have no idea. Maybe before.
At least more than 30 years, and she came to me after we made these dump pans in her bay, she said that she wished it would have been there 30 years ago. So, yeah, I mean,
So you guys went. What type of training or what type of permission do you get to download into other people on your planet, like your supervisor, your manager? Obviously, there's that, take this gospel. Steve said, we gotta do this, we're gonna do it. They probably have some type of training or knowledge as to what this program is about.
yeah, we started out with doing one department at a time. We started with cold heading. And we
Safety issue.
we scheduled meetings with the team leader and we took it, in baby steps with the team leader, showed them what we have, gone through it. Matter of fact, the owner actually sat down with those team leaders one-on-one and worked with those team leaders himself.
And with my, because I actually create the FEMAs for our company. I've been to AIG a couple times, their classes a couple of times for different versions. And I've just over the years of building these FEMAs, I've gotten to know the basics of how to do it very well. So they do come to me and ask if they have questions. We do every 2 weeks, we do review. We are team core team with whatever team leader we are working with. we do meet and I go over it with them and kind of help guide them in what they need to do. Okay, this needs to be changed. You're kind of getting a little too detailed here, or this needs to be here to help them to with this. So they're, I mean, this whole thing is, again, we're still, I guess, blazing this path. This is new to us. We're still working on it. We've done 2 departments out of 3 production areas.
Yep.
Plus, we're gonna do our offices, our distribution,
2-room maintenance.
2-room maintenance, and then a general 1, 2. So, and this is new to us too, but really the training history is just my basic at this point, knowing FEMA's and what the basics of the FEMA's are and how they work.
Like I said, this is basically just taking a job assessment for a job and just taking it one step further.
What's AIAG?
Automotive Industry Action Group. It's actually,
So it's like an outshoot of the TS.
it's the big 3 started this.
Yeah,
So Ford, GM, Chrysler, it's kind of their guys all together and they determine
it's their quality measurement.
quality measurements for the automotive industry.
Yeah.
So they're the one that created the FEMA, the control plan processes,
That's where Tim's like, I do this here at work. Why don't we take this and make
Yeah.
this a safety?
I do on a daily basis. I was like, why can't we? Just switch your thinking slightly.
The time commitment then, like starting out the first time in the department, how long does it take to complete this?
We've actually been only 2 departments in 1 year.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, we started, this year, we started, the 3rd department.
thread roll. But once you get your core down, then it's just gonna be maintaining it versus creating it. With us being in the creation, again, it's gonna be dependent on your company, your size, how many departments you have, how many you want to focus on. Our cold heading probably took 2 quarters, but that was also from us
Yeah.
starting up.
Yeah,
That was
off
also
the
with a
implementations.
startup.
Yeah.
And then sort took about 1 quarter.
Yeah.
And then we kind of had to take a hiatus for other stuff for 1 quarter, but other than that, we were trying to get it in 1 quarter per department, but it's slightly longer. So take your time on it. Then we meet based on whichever one we're in currently. Our core team is meeting twice a week, every other week to review what the supervisors have been working on. We're also trying not to make them, hey, get this done right now, because then it won't get done right. So they need it, because our cold heading, him and the person he had in with us, they would make these decisions, but then he would bring it to meetings to the rest of the department. So that everyone in cold heading got a say in it. Sort, she did surveys and she brought when things changed, she brought things to her employees to back it or to say, yeah, that should work. Because we don't want to put a bunch of things in and be like, well, that's not going to work in real life. That's why you make sure you get your floor workers involved. Rich?
Tim and Steve, you know, a lot of times, everybody in this room, we do safety for a full time.
Mhm.
You guys have other full-time jobs. And I get the message earlier that, the president was very open to this and like they say in anything, it starts from the top, right? You gotta get their buy-in. So, you know, what did you guys do to get the buy-in of your president? Or what we struggle with is we get safety, but they don't. And you know, as soon as you talk about something new, they think in dollars and cents, how much time commitment, because now you're gonna be doing this, so you can't do your regular job and there's gonna be other resources to take. How did you convince, or what did you guys do to say, hey, boss, this is what we think we need to do if we're gonna drive our safety score in a positive direction?
I mean, our luck is our president is very safety oriented.
Yeah.
And when I thought this, he said, you looked at me like, you think you can do it? I'm like, see what we can do. And I came up with the baseline and he liked it and he went with it. But when you come down to dollars and cents, is yeah, you might have to spend, how much are those round tables? You spend on those?
Couple grand.
A couple grand for that 1 table. Well, think about how many people's backs are gonna be saved. Or then all of a sudden, you might, how much money is it gonna cost to have to send someone for therapy or have back surgery or? I mean, you spent $2,000 here, that you might have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars down the road, every person that has that job, as long as you're open.
So this tool FEMA helps justify the cost of.
Yeah. And at this point in time, this is FEMA's is your idea phase. Like I said, with that table that we put in there. We had other ideas, but they were like, okay, we're not spending $22,000 on one machine to have this vacuum put in. It's a great idea. What else can we look at?
Yeah. This was also came from the floor too,
Yeah,
of what they wanted. You want this, or did you want the suction cup, idea?
and we had their input and this said, this works great. This saves their back a lot.
Now,
So,
did we go out and buy like, 10 or 12 of them at one time? No, we bought one to try it. Make sure it works. It's gonna do what they need to do.
so far they're loving it and they're a lot less in pain. My wife actually, was working in SORT 2 weeks ago, but she likes to look the idea of it.
But going back to what you were asking, Rich, it comes out of trust. You only
Yeah.
trust us,
Mhm.
come up with the right idea, the right decision for the company.
But I've seen too many companies are reactive. And they forked out thousands of dollars of like, you could have done this. And saved a lot of money. So. Like I said, that the pan dump thing,
Mhm.
how many more people now in the future, because we've had people in the past that had to have surgery on their shoulders and stuff. And they're 20 some years and, well, we would have had this back, like she said. Or the one lady, if I would have had this 30 years ago, I might not be in as much pain as I am.
Yeah.
So.
Everybody knows about back injury, it doesn't go away either.
So would it be fair to say that all of your team leaders, supervisors, first line leaders are on board with this?
Mhm.
Not just, yeah, we gotta do because Tim and Steve
Well-
and the boss said we have to.
I know at first, I think Jim, our, past production manager. He was pretty close on board, but then once it started showing things like, oh. It's actually doing something. He got on board. Same with Julie, our sort manager, supervisor. She at first was like, okay, we'll just, another thing we have to do. I kind of talked to her, I know we talked about other things on the side. And then she started seeing that this is actually very useful. She now has real data, real stuff when she fills out reports. And getting the people on the floor, I think is helping, they liking it too, because they're actually putting in information in. They're actually saying, yeah, this will work versus. Fortunately, we've had in the past when we've tried implementing things and people are like, this isn't gonna work. Why did you buy this? This isn't gonna work. Why didn't you ask us? And then we're like, okay, well, I guess we bought all this and we abandoned it. Whereas this actually makes you, hey, you guys think this will actually work? What's your thought of this? And with the FEMA's also being able to pinpoint it. What I mean by pinpoint is like, okay, shoulder injury due to this. This is what's causing these injuries. Well, let's address that cause, not just shoulder injuries in general. Or back injuries in general. Oh, we could throw all the ergonomic stuff at you, but that's not what's causing the injury. Well, now you can look at what's causing this injury. Oh, they're bending over, putting 30-pound boxes stacking high constantly. Well, what can we do to fix it? That's what I like about humans, that you can pinpoint that cause, focus on that cause.
So you say you guys got 2 departments that are done, right? I
Yep.
don't know how many departments you have, but what's your time frame to get it all 100%?
I think we want to get through this year with finishing production.
Yep, and then starting support
Yeah,
departments. So it's probably gonna be at least another year, I'd imagine, beyond that, to finish it off with the core of it. Again,
I would say 2025.
these are just your core, this is your core document, once they're all established, because now Julie hers is done, she can update it, add things to it, modify whatever needs to add new causes, add new injuries, adjust numbers if deemed they have working. So once that's in, it's just maintaining it.
Yeah, if you have an accident report you gotta fill out, you can go back and look at that and say, all right, did this happen before, what did we do to prevent this? you know, we need to change something. Now you got a living document to go by.
Right. So you belong to that professional association. Do you know of any of your other colleagues that are, besides using it in quality, they're using it in the safety realm?
We were the first.
We just kind of decided to try it and do it. And again, it's all about willingness. We were willing to do it and we were willing to put the money into our time into it, and then eventually money, as our president allowed. And it's showing us stuff. And it's actually bolstering and strengthening our safety program.
For all of our new equipment that we bought, we are keeping this in group safety.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's new equipment that provides to automotive. So it's sort of an offshoot of automotive, because we only have a small subsection of ours that's automotive based. But all the automotive ones are keeping us have safety. equipment. And when I was in Magna, we did keep FEMAs with safety.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've never
But they're
seen,
FEMAs, which are a little bit different.
yeah, process FEMA, it's kind of
Yeah.
your information is not focused on the safety, it's just focused on that. So the one thing that helped us with my knowledge with FEMAs is, based on my understanding, a lot of FEMAs are based on like control plans are based on, and which are tied to FEMAs are based on like cells, like assembly cells. Well, we don't have cells. We don't have assemblies. All of our FEMAs are based on components down to measurements. So whereas some companies have a FEMA that, or is tied to a control plan of bolt, riveting or fastening or putting 3 bolts in. Ours are diameters, radiuses, which helps narrow. That's why it helped with this, is because our FEMAs are, I'm used to already doing a focused FEMA. On one strand of FEMA is a shank diameter or a head diameter. So why switch it over to safety? Okay, a shoulder injury, an arm injury, and not a assembly, like a section as a whole. So that's really what also helped my knowledge. Because we work in the realm of specific dimension things.
Do you have a question back there?
Yeah, I was curious, what was your biggest hurdle through the last year? How did you overcome it? And if other people listening or here want to start rolling this type of process out, what anticipated issues do you see from a top-down approach, or things that they run into as they roll this out in their specific operations?
Overall, I think it's the willingness to put the time in, willingness to get the people involved, and I know a lot of them, harbor management, you have to show them, they want to know what the results are before the results can get there, before they're willing to buy in. But it's like, this is one of those things where the results will come, but you have to put it in first. You can't, especially since no one's really done this before in this aspect of it. I mean, like she said, there's some safety aspects in FEMAs in other areas, but they're not focused on, because this is focused on on our individual operations, not just a general, hey, make sure you do this or that, like a job instruction that has the safety issue in it. So besides that, my biggest, again, the obstacles was, besides, we were lucky because our president was all on board at the beginning, but coming up with that severity occurrence and detection took me at least a week or so to sit down with ideas. And like, okay, that doesn't seem to work. Okay, let's try this, let's do this. So,
Obviously, you gotta get employee buy-in.
yeah.
If you were gonna want them to do it. I mean, it has to work that way. Like for me in maintenance, I had an idea of what we wanna do with those dump vans, but I got one of my employees involved in it, made it his own. And now he's creating them like crazy out there, putting them out on the floor. He's proud of them, taking ownership of it. So the employee buy-in's huge.
That's awesome. That's really cool case study that you did that and kind of brain lit.
Yep.
And then again, with those stands, that they're loving that, they're asking when we're gonna get more. Julie asked me the other day, when are we gonna get more of those stands? They really want them out there. Cause it's really helping. So.
Yeah, question for you. So you say you've got 2 departments.
Yep.
What are some of the changes that you made from the rollout of the first department to the second department. I'm sure you learned some things didn't work as you expected, or you came up with a new idea, so going out from one department to second department, the third department.
Well, the first department, the supervisor got only one employee involved. The second department, Julie, she got the whole department involved by doing a survey of all the different hazards out there in the department and risks.
Yeah, that
All
was
that.
one improvement.
Yep.
Um,
And obviously too, doing the first one, Julie Sort was able to have a living document to kind of go by. So we've made her process go a lot quicker as well.
and then again, still, no matter what, your each department, like for us, each department's gonna be different. Some similarities, you're gonna have some crossovers. With the FEMA, with this type of FEMA, you gotta understand that you can have duplicates inside the same document. So you might have, some, like for our machine setup might have some similar things to our machine breakdown section or our, so it's okay to have duplicates. Because you might find down the road that, well, during the setup, this is actually our bigger issue versus tear down is actually this other cause. So, I mean, you can have repeats throughout all your documents. Don't be afraid of repeats. Which is kind of nice because sometimes you can base them off of each other, so. But some differences, like our material handling in cold heading is completely different than sort. There's a lot of material handling in our cold heading department deals with 4,000-pound coils or up to 4,000-pound coils. So therefore, with their material handling is different. They have to put stuff high in the air to get them onto these, call them hats, to wheel them into the machine, whereas sort is dealing with the tubs after everything's been made. So they should never be. I actually was a material handler too for a year before I became this position. And my forklift, I would literally be driving with my forks eye level just to carry this thing of coil. You can't be underneath, you have to be on top of it, holding it through the section on the top. So there are going to be similar but differences. So
like one of the things, like I was taught in like traditional risk assessments that are, kind of roughly PPMO line or FEMA line, is you have normal production section. So I'm just running production, and then you have like setup, maintenance and repair section. And then you have like what I'll call like environmental factors, right? So that's gonna be you have a trainee in the cell, you have a material handler for another department in your area. You have a machine that's downstairs doing a different job, like, it's kind of more environmental factors that are, some people put in there like mental health stuff, workplace violence, like they'll have a separate section that's environmental. Are you guys bundling your like setup and maintenance into your just general section? So you're accounting for setup and maintenance in that? So like your changeovers, right?
Yeah.
There's more risks. You're taking guards off, you're inside a machine.
well, we kind of bundled like for a cold heading. He broke down the different steps from beginning to end. So material handling was at the beginning of it, then they went to setups and operating and stuff. And we looked at all that can happen during that point in time. So we did not really break it down to environmental or things. So it's everything is
But you did group stuff though.
we did somewhat group stuff. That's where your operation comes in.
And we are gonna work on a general one as well.
So we will have a company-wide one, which will include like your slips and falls from
Yeah.
general walking
Yeah.
between places. Anything that is considered company-wide and not specific to that area.
Yeah,
No,
so there'll
like-
be department ones and it'll be like a general shop.
So there will be probably in that general one also like forklift safety. Of that, but from the pedestrian's point versus we'll have a production control FEMA which is our material handlers. They'll have their own separate with some of the similar stuff too. But, so yeah, we will have some general stuff too. So,
Cool.
at least that's the plan right now. Again, we're still new to us too. So,
No, I'm having discussions at my workplace about we're gonna get an intern to help us update our payments and risk assessments and stuff like that. And it's interesting because I had to argue with my leadership like 4 times. And they're like, well, why aren't you doing this? I'm like, if I had one person doing it full time in a shop of the size that we have, just our one shop, I have 4 shops. Just that one, I'm like, I could keep that person busy 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for an entire year, easy. No questions asked. And I would probably only have about a third of the shop done. I mean, people don't realize how long it takes. They just have no clue.
mhm.
And trying to justify an FTE for it, it's just. You know, cause
That's what.
dollars and cents, they're like, where's that money coming from, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how about we spend less than $400,000 a year in our workman's comp? How about that?
You gotta show that, you gotta show that data. Data is real.
Yeah,
You're going through this, into this process, how much did you think, and how much did you anticipate having to spend financially to get the process going, compared to how much? I guess the outlay would be different, because once you come up with once you identify your issues and then come up with solutions, the solution they're gonna have is something possible. If you have in mind that you're willing to put into the program, going into it.
Not really,
No,
no.
I mean, besides our time to get it developed and stuff, we're really visiting per. Like, again, when we get to the idea part of it, where we're coming up with solutions, we're visiting it, we're getting quotes, and then we determine what we're gonna put into it based on, again, what we have available. And I mean, sometimes there's some things, okay, let's put this off to a side for now and just revisit, see if we can revisit it again later.
Yeah, like obviously, making a prototype dump and getting it done, showing it effectively.